Heartsick by Chelsea Cain just remind me why I dislike serial killer thrillers. It is because they're never that good. Heartsick is Chelsea Cain's debut novel. It's the first book in her Archie, Sheridan, Lowell series, which has 6 books, I believe, and it was quite a ride. Before I begin talking to you about this book and the female Hannibal Lecter it stars, press the like button, subscribe and all that jazz. I have to grow this channel someday, and if you're interested in the reviews of similar horror, thriller or fantasy books, yes, this is a channel for you. So what's the plot in Heartsick? Actually, there's a lot of backstory and it is revealed throughout the book, because this book is a slow burn serial killer thriller that is more psychological than twists and turns and horror. We have this detective, Archie Sheridan, who spent 10 years hunting for a serial killer, the beautiful serial killer as she was called, Getchen Lowell. And one day, after he realized who the killer was, he went to her office. She was pretending to be a psychiatrist, and he was drugged and abducted, and Getchen did a number on him, and then she turned herself in. Years have passed since then, and Archie is called back into active service to help the Portland police find another killer, a killer who is abducting, abusing and killing teenage girls. And Archie is a broken man. His ordeal under Getchen, which is not revealed at the beginning, it's gradually described and given to us through flashbacks. So there is this factor of what did she do to this guy, and then as you see what she did, it was like, oh fuck, that's sick. And there is this very sick atmosphere in this book. Along with Archie, there's a young reporter, Susan Ward, which has her own skeletons in her closet. So together they try to track this new killer before he kills another teenage girl. Yeah, the part about the serial killer is very secondary in this book. It's important, of course, it's about finding a killer, but you know what? You pretty much know who the killer is. Halfway through the book, there's some red herrings here and there, but you know what? They're not that important. It's not one of those books you read for the twists and turns. You read this book for the characters, and the characters are great. Archie is really broken, yet he is also driven. And Getchen is a female Hannibal Lecter. She is very manipulative, somewhat intelligent, not super intelligent, manipulative though as Hannibal is in Red Dragon. And you pretty much know the drill. She's sadistic though. She has killed many people, and she has Archie visit her every Sunday in her prison cell, and if he plays along with her torture, she reveals where another of her victims is, so that Archie has to keep going to prison and talk to Getchen and go through stuff he passed, you know, the torture he was subjected to, again and again to find the victims. And of course there is a very sick, almost sexual bond between Archie and Getchen, and this bond really plays a big part in Archie's life, because he's estranged from his wife and daughter because of what he went through. He's addicted to painkillers, he's taking pills all the time, and he has to, you know, to take the maximum amount of painkillers and Vicodin and all this kind of stuff without overdosing himself. Even though it's very hard, he has to go through another hunt for a killer, which strains him. There is not much gore into this book. There is some nasty stuff happening, but it's not about, you know, the serial killer thriller when you have very descriptive killings and stuff. Of course the torture scenes are kind of they're kind of sick, but the sickness is mostly about internal. The suspense is much more internal than external, and I really like how the characters in this book are given. Archie and Susan, and we're never quite in their heads, so that's another part of suspense. We're not quite sure why Archie is doing what he's doing, and details are slowly revealed to us throughout this book. they have their own skeletons to bear, their own guilt, their own drives, and their own, let's say, bonds, their own problems to solve. And you know what? This is what really builds the novel for me. That's really what makes the novel stand out for me. It's about those two broken people trying to save lives, and they subject themselves to traumatic experiences. Their pasts return to haunt them in some way because one of the victims is from Susan's old school. So she's kind of returning to her teenage years where she had some traumatic experience happen, and this really creates tension for her. She's also not quite sure what's happening with Archie, and she feels some sort of manipulated, and she's actually manipulated by him in some aspects because Archie may be broken, but he's also a manipulator on his own, so he has to play a cat and mouse game with Getchen to get information about victims. So he's kind of not a great guy, he's not a good guy, he's definitely anti-heroic. What I really liked in the writing of this book is how everything is described, and there is this sense of decrepitude, of things falling apart. That is how the characters are on this side. So I always like when you use the environment and the description of the environment as a way to show the internal states of the characters, and Heartsick does that amazingly well. That's something I really liked, and what really helped me was the psychology of our two characters. Really enjoyed reading this book. It's definitely a 5-star read for me. I'll probably go and get the rest of this series at some point. Not right now, of course, because I have too many books, I guess. But yeah, that was it. If you've read this book, leave a comment below. Would love to hear your opinion about this. It's a great thriller in my opinion. I gave it a 5-star read, and it's one of the best books I've read this year. But I've read a lot of great books this year. I'm lucky on that aspect. And yeah, like, subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Stay spooky.